Jai Janendra, welcome everybody. We'll start the class now. We'll start with the prayer. Namo Ariyantanam, Namo Sittanam, Namo Ayariyanam, Namo Vajjayanam, Namo Loe Sabba Sahunam, Eso Panchanamukaro Sabba Pavapanasano, Mangalanancha Sabve Simpadamam Havai Mangalam. Veera Sarusura Surendra Mahito Virmuda Sansrita Virena Swakarma Nichayo Viraya Nityam Nama Vira Tirthamidam Pravutamattalam Virasya Ghoram Tapo Vire Sri Truti Kirtikanti Nichaya Sri Virabhadram Disa Kamathe Dhanendra Cha Sochitam Karma Kurvati Prabhusthalya Manovrutti Parshanath Sri Estu Vaha अंगूठे अमृतवसे लपति तना भंडार श्री गुरु गौतम समरिये मनवांछित फलदातार. Just a few slides to remind ourselves about our purpose and what we are going to be talking about. As you all know, the current topic is Bhare Sar Sajai, and as I've explained before, this will last quite a few weeks. So every week I'm not giving a detailed description of what to expect in the WhatsApp messages, but I'm sure most of you know the format by now. So Varhe Sar Sajai, as usual, we will recite the Sajai and then carry on with it, with the class. Varhe Sar Bahubali Apai Kumaro Dandan Kumaro Sirio Aniauto Imuto Nagadatto Meja Thulibaddo Vair Risi Nandi Sen Sinhagiri Kaivanno Sukosala Pundario Kesi Karakandu Halla Vihala Sudansana Sal Mahasal Sali Baddo Abaddo Dasana Baddo Pasana Chando Ajasabaddo Jambu Pahu Vankachulo Gai Sukumalo Avanti Sukumalo Tenno Ilai Putto Chilai Putto Abahu Muni Ajjagiri Ajjarakhiya Ajja Suhatti Udayago Manago Kale Suri Sambo Pajjuno Muladevo Pabhavo Vinahu Kumaro Ad Kumaro Dad Pahariya Sijansa Kurugaddu Sijambhava Mehe Kumaro Emai Mahasatta Dintu Suham Gunganehim Sanjuta Jesim Nam Gahane Pavapunda Vilayam Janti Sulasa Chandana Bala Manorama Menare Hadamiyanti Namaya Sundari Siya Nanda Padda Subadaya Rai Mai Siddhi Risidatta Paumavai Anjana Siri Devi Chitta Sujit Migavai Papavai Chilana Devi Bambi Sundari Rupini Revai Kunti Siva Jayantiya Devai Doi Dharani Kalavai Puff Chulaya Paumavai Gori Gandhari Lakmana Susimaya Jambuvai Satchabama Rupini Kanahat Mahisiyo Chakhaya Jakadina Bhua Tahachev Bhua Dinaya Sena Vena Rena Benio Thuli Baddas Ichai Mahasayo Jayanti Akalank Sila Kaliyao Ajvi Vajai Jasim Jaspado Tihuane Sayale. As we know, Sajja is a contemplation on the self, Atma. Swadhyay is also Sajjai. In this sutra, we are remembering 100 individuals. You probably know all this by heart now, who were exceptional individuals. They had a large virtues which we should try and emulate and incorporate in our lives. And we remember all these 100 individuals because their virtues are great to understand and to follow, and we worship them because of who they were. The individuals and these particular events that led to their becoming famous are what is described in these stories. The Sajjai itself mainly is just remembering them by name, and generally most Jains, Shravaks would know the stories of all of them. So on a daily basis during the morning Pratikramana, when you're reciting the Sajjai, in front of your eyes, you got the understanding of who these people were and why they are remembered. They made great spiritual progress by changing the course of their lives, by speaking out their names and reflecting on their lives. And we are appreciating their actions and hope and pray that we can walk the path they followed. Okay. There are 53 Mahapurusho and 47 Mahasatyo, 47 great women and 53 great men in the Sajjai. So far, we have heard about Bharat Chakravarti, Sri Bahubali, Sri Abhay Kumar, Sri Ranad Kumar, and Sri Shriyak. And we are basically out of the 13 Gathas, we are only on the first one. Today, we'll talk about Shriyak and one other person. We'll come to that. Now, we heard the story of Shriyak. Wait 1 second, let me, yeah. Last time, and I did say that I would bring a narrative of that. So this is just a reminder of what we talked about, but I just wanted to tease out a couple of other things in that story. Shriyak was exceptional, not just because of what he did when he became, just before he was appointed the chief minister of Magad in the under the king Nand. He was the last king of the Nand dynasty about 2,300 years ago. Magad is where the current state of Bihar is, and that area. He was the son of Saktal. There is a reference to Nand. If you Google Nand, King Nand or Nand dynasty, then there is a fair entry in Wikipedia about the different stories associated with it. It's mainly from a historical perspective. Saktal was the chief minister of King Dhananand and brother of Stulibhadra. Stulibhadra is also remembered in the Sajjai, and his story will come later on in the series. We just touched on his story last week as well. Shriyak became the chief minister after his father's death, and you hopefully all remember the circumstances by which Shriyak, his father's death was as a result of his instructions to Shriyak to behead him in the Royal Assembly Hall because of all the different things that were going on, and this was the only way of convincing the king that the family was loyal. He is remembered because he was a simple, devout person, extremely intelligent, but very steadfast in his resolve, and somebody who understood the wider context of all actions, and he had taken this particular step on the advice of his father, very, very reluctantly, but in beheading his father and mutually agreeing to do that, his vision was to ensure the safety and the security of the people of Magad at the time. He was a devout Shravak and later in life a steadfast Jain monk. He had built 100 Jain temples and 300 upashrayas. Towards the end of his life as a monk, one Paryushan, his sister Yaksha, who was also a nun, all of the 7 sisters of Shriyak and Sulibhadra had become nuns as well. So Shriyak had become a monk, and Stulibhadra, as we'll see later on, had also become one of the greatest monks of his time, who we remember now, but we will be remembered for a very long time. One Paryushan, Yaksha, his sister, persuaded him to fast one day during Paryushan, which was obviously quite difficult for Shriyak, which is not usually difficult for a lot of monks and a lot of lay people as well, as we all know. He found it very hard, but was steadfast in his vow and resolve. And because of great hunger that night, he died, but his mind was completely peaceful and he died with great equanimity, and his soul went to Devlok and will progress on to moksha in a short time after that life. Now, we've discussed some questions that may arise from this particular incident. And when we look at the lives of all these great people, and at the end of the story, we normally hear that they went to Devlok or they became completely free of all karmas and achieved Keval Gnan or went to moksha. Now, we haven't discussed the rules of the laws of karma and how we acquire but also get rid of karmas, and how some karmas which would obviously be acquired by major sins or pap are easy to get rid of. And discussing this with some other individuals, and it is possible that some people in the class may find it difficult to accept that how can something major like killing a person or killing your own father be considered to be something that would be rid of. So a karma acquired as a result of that, how could somebody not suffer the consequences of that with an equal amount of pain and suffering or death? And I think at some stage we may want to discuss the laws of acquisition of karmas and how they are, how we get rid of them, and what is the nature of justice and balance in nature. But I've been asked this question just a few days ago by somebody who found it very difficult to understand that uh, somebody who has fought great wars, who has been involved with killing a lot of people, can still then go to Devlok or can then still achieve nirvana or progress very fast in the emancipation of the soul. And we'll come across a few such incidences, and maybe when we can try and open up the conversation with that I'm discussing with Sandeep Bhai, then we may be able to be engaged in a bit of a debate. It'll be interesting to hear what your views are. So that's all I wanted to tease out of this story. Now, the next character in Paresa Sajai is Arnika Putra Acharya. Now, Arnika Putra Acharya was the guru of Sadhvi Pushpichula. Her story comes later in the series, but she is mentioned here because uh, there's a connection between what will be talking about, the two of them. Sadhvi Pushpichula was she had become a nun as a result of an incident and following some sermons and explanation by Arnika Putra Acharya, and was give me just 1 second to answer this. Sorry about that. Sadhvi Pushpula was a devout nun in the this particular grouping of monks and nuns. After a certain time, when all the other monks and nuns were moving to another place, as you all know, monks don't stay in one place. Arnika Putra Acharya was unable to travel very far because he had lost the strength in his legs and he needed to stay in one place and not travel too far because he's physically he was just unable because he had grown old. Now he could not stay on his own because he needed care and needed somebody to look after him and to get the food from the place that they were staying in on a daily basis for him. So Sadhvi Pushpchula agrees to stay there and look after Arnika Putra Acharya. And during her life in that role as the carer and a sadhvi, she, unknown to Acharya Arnika Putra, she achieves Keval Gnan. So she gets rid of all her karmas because of the great spiritual emancipation that was going on within her. And she achieves Keval Gnan. So she is actually at a much higher level than Arnika Putra Acharya, but she continues to carry on looking after him, going into the uh, city or the villages on a daily basis to get some gochari on a daily basis and come back and uh, help Arnika Putra Acharya feed. once during the monsoon season, when it had rained so hard, Sadhvi Pushpachula travels into the town and comes back with food. And Acharya Anikaputra is a bit uh, criticizes Sadhvi Pushpachula. How can you, as a nun, travel out while it is raining or travel in the rain? Because you would be in breach of your vows of looking after all life. Because when the ground is wet and when there is rain, your traveling from one place to another would actually entail a lot of one sensed or other insect life being killed in your travel. How can you do that? How did you? So she says that I walked in a way that I would not step on any land that had any life on it. So I selected where to put my steps, knowing for sure that there was no life where I put my foot down. So I was very careful in the way I walked uh, to the town to get this food and back all the way. So Arnikaputra Acharya is surprised and amazed that how can you know that? That what kind of knowledge do you possess that would enable you to do that? Is that knowledge that is temporary, or is that knowledge something permanent which would never go away and is of that state? So she answers that I've actually acquired that kind of knowledge. And Arnika Putra Acharya learns that she has become a Kevalgnani, and he is quite repentant that he has made somebody who is spiritually much higher than him serve him as a disciple, and he asks for forgiveness. And because he is extremely keen on going to moksha as well, and he wants to know what or when and how he will achieve Keval Gnan. So he asks Sadhvi Pushpachula that in the knowledge of your Keval Gnan, in your Keval Gnan, can you tell me how I will achieve Keval Gnan? So she tells him very in a coded language and very simple words that this will happen when you cross the river Ganges or river Ganga. So Anikaputra Acharya was extremely keen that he should test this out, and he had no doubt that that would happen. So he sets out very soon afterwards to go to the banks of river Ganga and cross the river. In spite of his weakness and difficulty walking, he set out to river Ganga to cross it. He sat in a boat with other passengers to cross the river. I'll state the facts, but we will discuss a bit about the events that are being described here. While he was in the boat with other passengers, his wife from his previous life, who had become a Vyantari, that is a kind of a lower type of devs and devis, Vyantar and Vyantari, she had retained a lot of hatred for Arunikaputra Acharya in his previous life, and with the knowledge that all devs would have, devs and devis, of their past lives, because they all possess Audignan, she comes down and sees him in a vulnerable position and decides to kill him there and then. And she tries to kill him. And it's very simple for a Devi like that. With her powers, she threw him up in the sky and pierced his body with a spear. Now, Arnika Putra Acharya is seeing that the spear has wounded him very badly and blood is pouring out of his body. You may find some pictures of this. I haven't Googled it, but I have seen pictures in certain books that somebody has depicted this as a painting. As warm blood from his wounds poured into the river, the Acharya is not worried about his pain. He's not worried about, and he's not upset or angry or cursing Devi who actually caused this. His only worry is that as his warm blood goes into the water in the river, the lives that are all present in the water and the other lives that are there would, so he's basically contaminating the river water, and the heat from his blood would be difficult for the cold water to bear, would be feeling as a result of the contact with his warm blood, should be with. He did not worry about or focus on his own pain, and he harbored no ill feelings towards the Vyantari who had wounded him. His total focus was on the other lives and this intense remorse that he was causing pain to others, and his complete focus on the welfare of others and completely ignoring his own pain and any ill feelings toward the person who had basically tried to kill him and he was aware that he was dying. In this state of elevated dhyan, initiated by the intense feelings and thoughts of welfare of all other lives, he got rid of all his karmas and achieved Keval Gnan and went straight to moksha, as his lifespan too ended at that moment. Arnikaputra Acharya is remembered because of his great concern for the welfare of other beings. That is the story very briefly. What I wanted to try and do for the next 25 minutes or so is ask you all to think about the events that have just been described, formulate either a comment or a question, and send it. I know we have not opened up the video and audio function, but if you can please send some messages about your thoughts on this particular story, any questions that you might have, and then in about 5-7 minutes we will restart and I'll start answering the questions. So I'm giving you about 5-7 minutes to think about it. Okay. So I'm hoping we are trying to make this more interactive. The story is short and simple, but instead of me expanding on everything, I'd like you to think about things and ask me questions. Okay. Now I'm going to stop sharing. And I know some of you have joined a bit later on. So if you've not heard the full story, don't worry. Just send me your questions and comments, and then we will catch up as we go along. Okay. Kavit, are you back? Or Ketan?
I am back. Kavit is back.
Kavit is back. Okay. So if you can please send messages to Kavit, then I will switch off my
Um, I just want to let the class know that you are able to unmute yourself, and if you wanted to ask a question, you can do so.
Sorry, guys, can I just suggest something?
Yes,
There is a raise hand function, so that
yes.
stops everyone from talking at the same time. If anybody wants to say anything, if they can press the raise hand button, and then we can take in turns to let people speak.
Yeah, we can do that. Ajit Bhai, I have a couple of questions that have been sent to me directly.
Okay,
Um,
thank you.
was Acharya Sadhviji's son?
No, there's no. He was a senior acharya. When we come to the story of Pushpachula Sadhviji, uh, uh, the acharya was probably much older. Pushpachula was much younger, and there is a different aspect to the story. No, he wasn't. They are completely unrelated uh, in Sansar. So whoever has got their hands raised or questions, you can actually switch on your videos as well, I think. Kavit,
Let me just check if that's set. No, it isn't. So, okay, so they can start their video. What I will do is unmute this device called Nilam. So I will unmute her and she can then ask her question. Okay, go
Nilma,
ahead.
yeah.
Sorry, Nilma, yes.
Yeah. Nilma, you can put your video on if you like.
It's not letting me put the video on for some reason. Sorry.
All right, don't worry. What's the question?
My question is that obviously when Pushpachula went for Gochri during the rainy season,
Mm-hmm.
and obviously she was told that why did she go for Gochri,
Mm-hmm.
because obviously that will harm a lot of small Jeev Jantus.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
what is the in current situation, do our Mara Sahib not go Gochri, or do they go and get the food when it's not raining, or how does it work?
Yeah, normally they would avoid and not to travel very far. And as we all know, they stay in one place during the rainy season. But there can be exceptions. But in this particular instance, because they were following a very strict order, and the Anikaputra Acharya was obviously the senior monk there. He was her guru, and it was his duty to ask her that question, that you did not do right. You shouldn't have traveled out while it was raining or during the rainy season. How would you know which area was without life and which area was with life? She wouldn't be able to know. So she said, no, don't worry. I walked in a place in a way that would ensure that no life was harmed. So obviously that would be an impossible uh, task for anybody without complete knowledge.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
I have a couple of questions on the message.
Mm-hmm.
Nick's iPhone says, my understanding is that sadhus and sadhvijis do not have encounters in isolation. I think it might just be a statement. I'm not sure.
Yeah, so they live in a group.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And Bharat Pavishi says, how come Ernikaputra was not aware of Pushpachila Sadhviji's Keval Gnan?
Okay, good question, Bharat Bhai. And the other question, just to answer that a bit more in detail, Nick, normally sadhus and sadhvijis don't stay on their own. In this particular instance, because Arnikaputra Acharya could not travel and he needed care, and Puspichula Sadhviji was the only one, and there are circumstances around it. I think this was a town which was familiar to Puspichula Sadhviji, and that it would not be difficult to get the gochri in that place. So she volunteers, and it was agreed that she would stay and look after. So these were exceptions, but also when exceptions are taken, there are always very important and very strict rules about that. But these were great people, these were great acharyas, and as we know, I mean, for Puspichula Sadhviji to achieve uh, Keval Gnan, while she was looking after um, and perform Arnika Putra Acharya and performing her penance, and it was not something that was obvious to anybody outside. So that brings me to Bharat Bhai's question. Bharat Bhai, I think you're coming from the fact that whenever somebody achieves Keval Gnan, or sometimes, not always, that particular event is celebrated by devs, and it can become quite obvious, but it doesn't happen all the time. And we've got a few examples of that. For example, during the achievement of Keval Gnan by Mrugavati, followed by Chandanbala, again, that was a fairly sort of silent event. And then we have the achievement of Keval Gnan by some other people where the devs come and celebrate that event. Here, this happened silently, and Puspichula does not actually disclose this to Arnika Putra Acharya. Obviously, in her Keval Gnan, she would know when that would happen. It was not something that she wouldn't have known that the time for the disclosure would come at a certain time, and the sequence of events that would follow after that was also known to her as a Keval Gnani. But there was no need to preempt that, because, as you know, the Keval Gnani is completely vitragi, meaning there is no other consideration except for the welfare of the other person, and an understanding of what is appropriate, what is right, what is the sequence of events. So with that total knowledge, there was no need to disclose that fact, and there was no announcement as one would expect sometimes else. And they were probably performing their daily sadhanas in the way that they were. So there's not many people who would be coming to look at them or look after them. So I suppose the circumstances were that it was never really an issue that you disclose this. Does that answer your question, Bharat Bhai? Sorry. Is your mic on, Bharat Bhai?
Yes. Thank you, Ajit Bhai.
Yeah.
I think this answers it adequately.
Okay.
I mean, there are, as you said earlier, there are instances whereby other Keval Gnan, like Mugravati and Chandanbara have recent examples there, whereby Chandanbara was not aware of
Yeah.
Mugravati's Keval Gnan,
Yeah.
Thank you very much. The other thing I just wanted to mention, Kate, in the event of Keval Gnan happening to a Shishya, as this was the case, I think the Guru would never take any services from the Keval Gnani.
Yes. And there is, thank you for bringing that up, because there is always a protocol as well. So in Bhagwan, in the Tirthankar Bhagwan Samvasran, the 12 Parshadas, the Keval Gnanis sit at a different place with other Kevalgnanis, and they don't sit at the same place. So people who have not yet achieved Kevalgnan would be seated separately. So because of their elevated status, the respect that is due to them, it's always given
Yes.
as soon as it is known. So those rules are very well followed, and there's a reason for those rules.
Yeah, as we have seen in Gautam Swami's,
Gautam Swami's, yes,
you
yes.
know, when when the other monks, you know, achieved Kevagnans, he was
Yeah.
trying to tell them to sit at a certain place, and
Yeah,
he
exactly.
was stopped
Yeah.
by
Yeah.
Bhagwan Mahavir, you know.
Yeah. And a lot of Gautam Swami's Sishyas, disciples, a huge number of them achieved Kevalgnan long before he did. So
Yeah.
that in many ways is a story worth listening to as well at some stage in the future. Okay.
Thank you. Sorry, I was not. I couldn't get my video on. You know, I
No,
mean,
no,
it
don't
doesn't
worry.
allow
That's
me.
fine. That's fine. We're, yeah, but at least you got audio. Okay. Anybody else who has got Kavit? Any
I
other
have a
questions?
question come through from Darshna Dhanani.
Uh-huh.
If we are to detach from many items, why do Sadhvijis and Sadhus go to others' house to collect food?
The alternative would be to set up a kitchen and everything else that would be attached to it. So there are only two ways one can feed oneself: either buy and make the food yourself, or go out and pay for it, or get it from somebody else who is cooked for themselves, and get bits from different households. That is called gauchari. So the later, the rules of gauchari dictate that this is the least harmful path. So if you've taken a vow of not to harm any living thing as in any way, then cooking, acquiring food in any other way is more harmful to other beings than acquiring it in this way. And they go to different houses because if they say, come to the house of one of us in this group, they would ask for, or they would say, Gochri Borawa Ave. They would say, Saib, I've got rotli, I've got bhat, I've got dal, bhat, I've got these things. Can you please have all of it? And they would say, let me just have rotli from you, if you got enough or spare. And they would see that you got plenty and that there was something spare, and they would have some of that. If you had made 20 rotlis, generally they would not be taking all. They would not be taking even if there are, say, 4 or 5 people to feed there, they would try and get only a few out of that. They would ensure that you had spare, and this, they would go to another house and get something else. And I don't know if you know, but whenever monks and nuns eat, they don't have separate patras for all the different foods that have been served to them like we do, because we are very conscious of the taste. Everything is mixed together and eaten without consideration of what is tasty or not. So the whole point of feeding is to sustain your body, to perform, and to get the maximum out of that body for the benefit of the soul. Hope that answers your question, Darshana.
Can I just ask a question on that bit as well, Ajit
Yeah,
Bhai?
yeah.
do they have a certain amount of houses they can visit, or they can visit as many houses as they want?
They would visit few houses, but depends on, say, for example, not all the monks go out to seek alms. Some of them may go out to seek alms for the whole group. So they would be getting food for the whole group, and then once they are with the guru, then they would distribute it amongst themselves, or the guru would distribute it. And I think if you look at the lives of monks and the compared with how much and how we eat and rest, and their lives are physically quite tough. So they may visit several houses, but they would not be taking anything that would be stored for the next day. Understand? So not like we would be hoarding food for the next day, or we would be keeping any leftovers, or they would be, so they do not have any possessions themselves. If the individual gets everything from one household, then that is fine, but their process would be to go to a couple of households, unless there is enough food in the proper way from just one household. And as we heard in the story of Tandan Kumar, he just gets some modak from one household, that is a sweet laddu, and he discovers that that is not according to the vow that he has taken, that it should only be food that has been given to him by his own merit, with his own merit. So he goes out to dispose of that modak. So that would have been a very simple single item of food, and he was probably living on his own at that time, or doing sadhana on his own, which was allowed at that time. In this day and age, monks and nuns must stay in a group. They are not allowed to have the same freedom as the monks and the nuns, the monks in Bhagwan Mahavir's time and sometime after that were having.
I think Darshna Dhanani had a comment to make.
Yeah.
If Darshna, you're unmuted if you want to make.
Thank you. So, Ajit Bhai, how do the sadhus and sadhus know if it's not leftover food? Like, because here you could have leftover food. So how would they ask?
I mean, they would expect the Shravaks, whose houses they are going to be aware of this.
Mhm.
But so, for example, there are certain rules that they would be follow. If, say, when they are in your home and you are getting something out of a fridge, then they may question that. If we do not know, I mean, most Shravaks and even non-Jains, there are stories of, there are examples of a lot of our monks and nuns who travel in areas or towns where there are no Jains. They would ask the Guru Maharaj or the Sadhu Maharaj or Sadhuji Maharaj, will this be suitable? And if the obvious question that needs to be asked is it vasi or is it fresh? Then they would ask that question. Say, look, Jo, if it is not fresh, if it is vasi, then it is not something that we are allowed to take. Okay. The term that is used is Sahib tamne a khapse ke tamne khape wu che. Khape atle ke, that's something suitable for the rules that you follow. So most Shravaks and Shravikas would know if they are used to monks and nuns, but otherwise those rules are very well learnt by a lot of Shravaks and Shravikas, but in India, even a lot of non-Jains would know those rules. And when they are inappropriately offered food which is not suitable, then they would enlighten the person. So it's a dialogue. So it's not blindly, some ways like us, like, "Oh, it looks fine, let's carry on." But some Shravaks also do, if they are going visiting to some other places, they would say. So for example, when we go to a restaurant, somebody's house, and we warn them in advance that I don't eat potatoes or carrots. If you're making some food, we need something without onion and garlic. So you warn people in advance, and most Shravaks and Shravikas would know.
Thank you, Ajit Bhai. I have a question here from Bijal Shah.
Mhm.
When someone achieves Keval Gnan, the
Mhm.
Tirthankars give Deshna and Tirath Stapna. What happens to the Siddh Bhagwants? Is there a gap between Keval Gnan achievement and moksha? And
Yes,
what do they do in between?
in between. Yeah, good question. I mean, once somebody has achieved Keval Gnan, so for example, in this instance, Arnika Putra achieves Keval Gnan and his lifespan ends almost soon after or within a very, very short time. So his soul's journey to moksha from the time of achieving Keval Gnan to moksha is very short. So he would be called Antakrut Kevdi, meaning that he becomes a Kevdi Bhagwant at the end of his life and his lifespan is ended. Bhagwan Mahavir became Keval Gnani, and he achieved Keval Gnan at the age of about 42, and his Nirvan was around the age of 72. So for 30 years, he was going around. Devs were creating a Samvasaran, and he was giving Deshna. Other Keval Gnanis, depending on the time, if there is a Tirthankar Bhagwan in that area, then people would be going there, but not necessarily. There may be other Keval Gnanis who would be giving sermons. And in other times, Devs have been known to create a Suvarna Kamal, or a large Kamal for Keval Gnanis to sit on, and for people to come and listen to them. And there are many, many examples of Keval Gnanis who spend a long time afterwards, after achieving Keval Gnan, before they go to moksha, uh, giving sermons and um, helping people to be enlightened. They continue to live as monks and nuns, and they would be helping people with their knowledge to uh, help them with their emancipation of their souls and guiding them. So, and they could be spending a long time. So if you look at the lives of, say, the Keval Gnanis in Bhagwan Rushabdev's time, and subsequently in the other 22 Tirthankars, when the lifespans were very long, then a lot of Keval Gnanis would be around for a long time. And currently in Mahavide Kshetra, there are lots of Keval Gnanis in, say, Simandar Swami's Sangh and others, but and all the other Mahavide Kshetras. So wherever the Tirthankar is not around, the Keval Gnanis would be preaching as well. So it's a question of how long is your Aisha Karma after you achieved Keval Gnan. If it is a few minutes, then that's it. If it is a few 100,000 millions of years, then you stay as a Keval Gnani for that time. Okay.
Nilma, can I ask you to unmute yourself and put your video on and ask your question?
Sorry, it's not allowing me video again. Sorry.
Okay,
Okay.
all right,
Okay.
that's fine. Just
Right.
ask your question.
Okay, just wanted to ask, in the Sajai, it seems that there are great Mahapurusha men coming up fast, and then all the Mahasatis or ladies' names are appearing. So is the Sajai eventing all these people in the time order it happened, or is it just in any order?
No, it's not the time order, but as far as I'm aware, because some of the times of also Bharat and Bahubali were obviously um the oldest at the time of Bhagwan Rushabdev, and I'm not fully aware of the time scales of everybody. So, for example, Sulsa Sravika was around the time of Bhagwan Mahavir, but Sita is mentioned, and that was much earlier. But they're not necessarily in the same order. So this is written in verse form. So there are rules of how the verses are created and the flow of words. So Parhesar Bahubali Abhay Kumaro a Dandan Kumaro Sirio Ani Auto Aimuto Nagadatto a. Now that is the first gatha. So there are also rules of a sort of metre and the way poetry and sloks are written. So they would be following that. I don't think that there is a particular order in which they are mentioned. I may be wrong. And I'm not exactly sure when this was created either, but I'll try and find out if I can get the information.
Thank you, Ajit Bhai.
Okay. Okay.
Can I ask Ajit Bhai, what is Deshna? Even I think
Yeah,
somebody, Darshna Kanani has asked the same question actually as well.
yeah.
What is a Deshna?
Deshna is a sermon, basically. Bhagwan Ni Deshna means the sermon given by Bhagwan. Deshna is a very respectful word that is used. So it is not an ordinary pravachan. It's not an ordinary discussion. It's a Deshna is something that is structured with a purpose, and in a lot of the stories that we hear, Desna is always successful in sort of moving people forward. So Tirthankar Bhagwan's Deshna, so for example, the story is that Bhagwan Mahavir's first Deshna was unsuccessful. Now that is an exception that has occurred particularly in this particular Ausarpini, in this particular time, because it is a very bad time. And this is one of the 10 different exceptional events that occurred, that Bhagwan ni Deshna Nishfad Gai, meaning that in that one, the first Deshna that Bhagwan Mahavir gave, nobody became a monk. And the reason why that happened was that all the participants, because of the time of when the Devs created the Samvasran, all the people sitting there, all the souls sitting there to listen were Devs and Devis. There is no human beings. So then Bhagwan Mahavir travels to this other place the next day, and Indraputi Gautam and the 10 other Pandits come, and they all become his disciples along with their own disciples. So a huge number take Diksha the next day. So that was a successful Desna. A Desna is a sermon, basically. Okay, I think we are 9 minutes past. So I hope you enjoyed this format, and we'll see if we can repeat this in a different way next time. But I gave you about 25 minutes, or more, about half an hour. Hope you liked it.
Thank you, Ajit Pai. I think it was definitely a bit different, and we'll try and polish it up a bit for next time.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, now I'll bring the class to an end today, and thank you all for sitting and listening. If I've said anything that's against the teachings of Jain Dharma, against the teachings of the great Tirthankars, I ask for forgiveness. Manuchan kaya kari tasmichami dukram. Sarvamangal mangalyam sarvakalyan karanam pradhanam sarvadharmanam jainam jayati sasanam. Thank you.
Thank you, Ajit Bhai.
Thank you
Pranam.
all. Kavit, can I switch off?